Folks, I'm not going to lie to you. I cannot wait for the NFL draft to be here. It is so frustrating at this time of the year when we're just sitting here waiting. I was battling back and forth on whether that I should make today's episode about a deep unpacking of defensive tackle prospect Tyleik Williams, which it was just broken that he is officially visiting the Buffalo Bills on a pre-draft visit. And I had to go with today's topic of what exactly is Brandon Beane going to do. Let's look at history. Let's figure out if he is more likely to trade up, to trade down, to stay put. And I felt that that was a good way to take this episode. I think that I will still drop a full analysis on the prospect of Tyleik Williams, since I think all of us are in unison that defensive tackle is the paramount need that should be addressed in the NFL draft. But damn, I just can't wait. I am getting sick of mock drafts. I am getting sick of player analysis. I am getting sick of discussing possibilities all across the board. Just give me the new class of the Buffalo Bills. Am I right? But regardless, I am still very excited to unpack all of the history of the Brandon Beane era in the NFL draft, right? And it's funny because we always look at our draft selection at pick 30 and whether or not that I am discussing a specific prospect. A lot of us always say, oh, he's not going to be there at 30. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, history suggests that Brandon Beane does not like staying put in the NFL drafts. He is a mover and a shaker during this time of the year. And we are going to unpack all of the moves that he has made in 2018, 2020, 22, 23, 24, all across the board. And we are going to attempt to guess exactly what Brandon Beane's strategy is as far as the overall movement going into this year's class. For those of you joining me live on YouTube, I appreciate you regularly making this a part of your daily routine. Please do me a favor, smash that like button. It is the easiest way to show some support over here. As many of you know, I am live daily, Monday through Friday, giving you all of the topics, the trends, the hot takes surrounding our favorite team, the Buffalo Bills, of course, on the Dom Mafia Report. If, for example, you are listening on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts, please do me a favor. If you are enjoying the show, certainly consider leaving a rating and review. We have recently just got on all audio platforms, so we can bring this content to the audio sphere, baby. Man, I am looking forward to diving in today. Now, as regularly, I am going to be yapping for about 15 to 20 minutes, discussing all of the history surrounding the Buffalo Bills movement in the NFL draft. And then I'd say about 20 to 25 minutes in, I am going to transition over to my lovely live chat, folks. All right. So for those of you listening to audio, if you ever want to catch these episodes live and be a part of this live Q&A segment, which I have each and every single episode, search me up on YouTube, Dan Mitchell. In fact, I'm pretty sure that it is linked in the description of the podcast by itself. But let's take a look. Brandon Beane, are we going to pick at the 30th spot in the first round of the drafts? I'm going to throw out a spoiler alert here, folks. It is not going to happen. Staying put would have to be the least likely scenario in my eyes. And that is just looking back at what he has done in the past. Even going to the 2018 draft. And this is a fun fact because I didn't even realize this until I started researching for this episode. Did you know that in 2018, at one point, the Buffalo Bills had the 21st and the 22nd overall pick? We received the 22nd overall pick. I know. Brace yourselves, Bills Mafia. From the previous draft year where we ended up giving the Kansas City Chiefs Patrick Mahomes. But at one point in the 2018 draft, we had the 21st and the 22nd. Previously in that offseason, and this is interesting because this is actually the last time that Buffalo had ever franchise tagged a player, Cordy Glenn. We shipped over Cordy Glenn our 2018 first round pick, which was the 21st overall, right? And then a 2018 fifth round to the Cincinnati Bengals in exchange for the 12th. And then I think we all know who we ended up selecting, at least in that draft, after this next move. Once we achieve the 12th, and this is a lot of movement from Brandon Beane, he was clearly very much trying to make some noise and get the QB of the future. He took that draft compensation and he traded the 12th overall pick and the second overall pick, 53rd overall, and a 2018 second rounder as well. That is 2 seconds to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in exchange for pick number 7. And that just so happened to be Josh Allen. All right. So that was quite a few moves, folks. We started off with the 21st and the 22nd overall pick. We got up to the 12th overall pick by shipping off Cordy Glenn, a first rounder in 2018, which was one of our first rounders at 21, and a fifth round to get 12. And then we traded our first round in 2018, which was acquired by the Cincinnati Bengals, and shipped over 2 second-round picks, 53rd and 56th overall, so that we could get our guy. 4 to 5 picks up. Here, folks, please forgive me. I'm sitting here and I'm letting my caffeine come on in. Lost my train of thought here. And then after the 2018, we also ended up trading our 22nd overall pick, a 2018 third round pick, and a 2018 fifth round pick to the Baltimore Ravens in exchange for the 16th overall, in which that we selected Tremaine Edmunds. So we did so many moves to move around in the first round, all of which was trading up here. Started off with the 21. With the 21st and the 22nd, and we ended up walking away with the 7th and, of course, the 16th overall, in which we drafted Tremaine Edmunds. So quite a few moves here. I'd say the largest movement, but Brandon Beane obviously needed to make a move, and he did. Fast forwarding into 2020, we traded a first-round pick, which is 22nd overall, a fifth-round pick, and a sixth-round pick to the Minnesota Vikings in exchange for Stephon Diggs and a 2020 7th-round pick, in which it ultimately ended up turning out to be Dane Jackson. So that was the Stephon Diggs is going to be our first-round pick. In 2022, oh my God, not the 2022 NFL draft, folks. We all have PTSD from Kaiir Elam being selected. But what we did here is that we traded the 2022 first-round pick, 25th overall, and the 2022 fourth-round pick to the Ravens in exchange for the 2022 first-round pick, 23rd. So we ended up moving up 2 spots to select our guy. And pay close attention here, folks, because this is largely a trend, and it makes a lot of sense based off of all the speculation of where Buffalo could potentially move up in this year's draft, because we did the exact same thing the following year in 2023, where we walked away from Dalton Kincaid. We went from the 27th to the 25th. And get this, it was a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick. So when a lot of us are asking what exactly is the price for the Buffalo Bills marginally moving up in the NFL draft, I'm going to tell you what. From what it is looking like, if we want to move up to the 24th overall pick with the Minnesota Vikings, which I think is the most popular trade partner that we have been ultimately pinning as far as the speculation season, all it cost was a first and a fourth-round pick. A far cry from a lot of the speculative, oh no, it's going to at least cost us a second round. That's not what history is telling us. Certainly not with what history is telling us indeed. Now, last year, we all know that we did trade down, and that was probably the biggest gripe within Bills fans, because we traded down with the Kansas City Chiefs and they got Xavier Worthy. But to give you an idea of what that looked like, we traded the 28th overall pick with the Chiefs in exchange for their first-round pick, and we received the third. And we also received a 2024 7th-round pick, which was $220. and then traded newly acquired 2024 first round pick with the Panthers for a second round pick. And we ultimately ended up getting Keon Coleman. So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at what Brandon Beane has done. And I think that all signs are pointing that the Buffalo Bills are probably marked right now to trade up a couple of spots. And I think it's almost the best speculation that that is largely going to be a trade with the Minnesota Vikings. And I don't think it's going to be as expensive as many of us think. In fact, dare I say, I have a feeling that us trading up with the Minnesota Vikings could cost something very similar to the compensation that we received in 2022 and in 2023. A first-round pick swap and a fourth rounder. I think that's all it's going to cost. Some people might say, hey, you know what? I'm going to pull some teeth here and say, that's not 2 spots. That's a bit further up. That's 3 spots up, if you will. However, I'm pretty sure a first and a fourth would be able to get us into that sweet spot within the first round. Now, who is going to fall there? That's still up for debate because I cannot tell you how many mock drafts I have reviewed. I cannot tell you how many mock drafts that I have done where I see a wide variety of different landing spots depending on who is conducting the mock draft of where some of these players are going specifically. Last but not least, I do kind of want to discuss a trade down scenario. Last night, I had the pleasure of welcoming Bruce Nolan from the Bruce Exclusive onto the show because I'm always curious to hear his thoughts because he definitely has a very intriguing opinion. I have a lot of respect for the guy. He's very intelligent, knows ball. And he thinks that if the Buffalo Bills were to trade down, he would hope that it would be a trade down into the second, but then trade back up into the second afterwards. Because I think we were both on the same page that Buffalo walking away with 10 picks. And although that he pointed out yesterday that we didn't think that Brandon Beane would walk away with 10 picks last year, but here we are. He did. That we would need to finesse our way up higher into the second round. But I think it is going with list of priority. And if you were to ask me, I think the most likely scenario for Buffalo is going to be trading up with the Minnesota Vikings at 24. Second most likely is a slight trade down, but with the intention of using that newly acquired draft capital to move up again somewhere within the draft. And the least likely is going to be to select 30th overall. It just appears to be that way. Now, folks, as I have told you at the beginning of the episode, this is the time where I transition over to my live chat where they can take control of the conversation. So, guys, once you are loading up your questions, please do me a favor in the live chat. Please begin with a Q dash so I can easily decipher between questions and also statements. It's just a better listening experience for our good friends over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever they listen to podcasts. And for those of you that are listening, if you ever want to be a part of this live chat, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you find me on YouTube so that you can be a part of this live segment. I do need to give a giant shout out to today's sponsor, and that just so happens to be William Mattar. Folks, if you were ever hurt in a car, you better call William Mattar, #1 car accident attorney in the state of New York. I would never wish this on anybody, even my worst enemy. However, if you ever find yourself in that unfortunate scenario, it is imperative to have the right representation and look no further than William Mattar. Phone number is on the screen in case you are currently dealing with that at the beginning. Carl has come in. Oh, my God. Carl has come in with a $5 donation, and I appreciate that. Kicking it off with a statement that I love. All the best mock drafts I have seen trade up to get us Kenneth Grant and Trey Amos, winding up with 7 picks overall. I think, Dan, you did one like that. Yeah, dude, for sure. I think that everyone knows that Kenneth Grant is the apple of my eye, right? He is the #1 prospect that I would like to walk away with in the first round of this NFL draft. I like Trey Amos as well. And so I wouldn't be like throwing a hissy fit by any stretch of the imagination if we ended up drafting him if Kenneth Grant was no longer on the table. But it's 6 to 7 picks. Say that I had to give an educated guess. So we trade up slightly with the Minnesota Vikings because they have 6 picks. I really think that they want to acquire as much capital as humanly possible. That's just the most likely from what I see. But yes, I would certainly agree with you. We have Mikey has come in with a question. Talk to me, man. How is life? Who is your favorite late day 2 defensive tackle? I like Alfred Collins and I like Shamar Turner. I love Alfred Collins. He is, I would say, the prototype of a defensive tackle that I am looking for in this NFL draft, right? What I want this defensive tackle to do for me is to largely be a run stopper. That needs to be his number one priority. Say that he gets a little bit of pressure here and there. Great. It's half of the reason why I'm really not much of a Walter Nolan guy. A lot of people have been saying, oh, Dan, like, why do you want Walter Nolan on this team? Or why don't you want him on this team? It's largely because it's not a scheme fit, right? It's basically having 2 players or 2 Ed Olivers on the same team. And I'm not saying that Ed Oliver is better than Walter Nolan. I'm not saying that Walter Nolan is better than Ed Oliver. I'm just saying that they play the exact same position. They are both true 3-tech defensive tackles. And we need the missing ingredient to our recipe. And that is, by and large, a defensive tackle whose best skill set just so happens to be a big body that can draw double teams from the offensive line. That is the biggest thing that we need. We need to be able to draw double teams to open up the rest of our defensive line. And Walter Nolan, I think, would not be utilized correctly. I think that we would be drafting him, asking him to do something that he's not particularly good at, or he's not particularly inspired to play. Like, he wants to go to a team where he could be the Ed Oliver. He could be the Quinnen Williams. He wants to be the guy that is the defensive tackle that creates pressure, not just the big-bodied run stopper. So, yes, I love Alfred Collins. He is probably my favorite. I do like Darius Alexander, but he's probably like a high second. I do like Tyleik Williams, but he's probably a high second as well. I like Josh Farmer, too. I'm okay on Deone Walker. I feel like he's going to need a bit more, I'd say, of development, because there's still a few pieces of his game that I wish were improved. But say that he's a double dip candidate, sign me up. Sign me up. Derek Cunningham, did you see that PFF has reevaluated their player rankings, and Kyle Williams is not a second rounder? Derek, I have not seen, is now a second rounder. Look at that, folks. Kyle Williams, the apple of my eye, wide receiver, as many of us know, is finally getting the recognition that he deserves. Guys, if you have not been familiar, or if you have not familiarized yourself with Washington State wide receiver Kyle Williams, please do yourself a favor and watch some of his game, because it is very inspiring. It is some of the most exciting tape you will see. He is an absolute burner. He takes ankles. He sends DBs into another universe based off of his physicality at the line, his route running, his agility. Oh, man, he's one of my favorite wide receivers coming out of this draft. And whoever ends up walking away with him, he is going to have a hell of a career in the NFL. I can guarantee you that. Ted Newcomb is coming and saying, if Cook doesn't get extended by the time the draft rolls around, is it safe to assume he is walking? Ted Newcomb is coming with a James Cook question. Likely. So James Cook is going to play for the Buffalo Bills per Ian Rappaport. He's unhappy that he did not get a contract extension this offseason. But as we have unpacked on this episode ad nauseum or on this show, it would not behoove him in the slightest to sit out for a year where he wouldn't be able to provide tape as an audition for a contract next year in the offseason by itself. So I think more than likely what's going to happen is that so with James Cook, I think he's going to have a great season this year. I think that he mimics exactly what he did last year, maybe slightly better. He's going to hit free agency. I'm sure that we will probably give him a deal or we will offer him a contract, but somebody will outbid us significantly and he will walk. And in 2026, the first year of our new stadium, he will be wearing a different uniform. And then we would probably end up addressing the running back position in the following NFL draft, if you were to ask me. Bill 716, question. We see the holes and needs on defense, and we think that's where Beane will focus on in the draft. But what if he doesn't go defense at 30, but instead he drafts an offensive weapon in the first round? So I think it all depends on whether or not that offensive weapon has a first round grade. And I feel like I've been in the camp that I don't want us to reach for a wide receiver until the third or the fourth round. Somehow say that we can get a third round pick, which I imagine we'll be able to finesse our way into that round. I feel like the only way that I would be okay with that is as if, right? Like we see Kenneth Grant gone, like he somehow gets selected with the 15th, 16th overall pick. Say that Will Johnson is gone. Say that Trey Amos is gone. Say that Jahdae Barron is gone. And Matthew Golden is staring us in the face. Then yeah, so I would be okay with it, right? But only if that is how the board falls. Like Matthew Golden for me is probably 6th on my board for first round talent based off of where I could realistically see us being set to pick. Grant is number 1 for me. I'd go Trey Amos is number 2 for me. Number 3, I'd probably go Emin Wari. I'm still very high rate on that player. Number 4, Max Harrison, I would probably take right over an offensive weapon. I'm trying to think who else is really standing out to me. Yeah. So say that he does ultimately end up going an offensive weapon, I probably would be a little upset unless it was Matthew Golden and we had all of the other players that we wanted on the defensive side of the ball gone and already accounted for. Question. Soul Train is coming. What's up, man? So I think I have multiple second round picks would be amazing, but who would you want if that happened? Man, second round targets, man. Second round targets. So it really all depends. Say that we were to trade down, you're saying. Say that we were to trade down, I would probably want to target players like, so a Tyleik Williams or a Darius Alexander as the first pick of the draft, which would be an early second. And this is only the scenario that we do trade down, right? And like we end up using some capital to get up into the third eventually. So I'd say Tyleik Williams would be my first selection in the early second round. And then I would probably want to trade up again slightly within the second round as well, so we could have more of like a middle of the pack like sort of selection. Then I'd probably go with Zaire Thomas, CB2 out of Florida State. And so who I think would be a stellar scheme fit for this team. And then third pick in the second round, that's when I would probably go with a Jalen Royals and or a Kyle Williams. Probably. That would be that hypothetical. But who knows what Brandon Beane is going to do here. We have Juan Torres has come in with a question. Hey, Dan, and do you think any current Bills players that could be traded during the draft? I don't necessarily see that. So I do understand that there has been quite a few storylines that have been coming out of Philadelphia that they are going to be very aggressive and they are going to bring in a player. Big piece of news that just dropped is that Sounds like Philadelphia is eyeing Tyreek Hill for an NFL draft day trade. I don't believe that that would be the case, but say that there's any targets that make sense to me. I feel like a Daquan Jones could certainly be up on the board if, of course, that this was a possibility. I'm not saying that it is, but I'm just trying to think of players that we could potentially walk away from, because a lot of us have been discussing, hey, you know what? Like, we really want to be able sort of double dip at the defensive tackle position. So I could see Daquan Jones being shipped off, perhaps. Maybe AJ Epinesa. Say that we also, like, look, for all we know, like, this Buffalo Bills team throws a massive curveball, and in the first round, we end up walking away with like Mike Green, right? Mike Green, perhaps, or another edge rusher, like one of the two. Who knows? If that was the case, then maybe we see AJ Epinesa on the move. But I'm not entirely convinced that we are going to see any player get shipped off, but who knows? It could happen. Mac26, he's saying, can you give Bob a good morning slap, and can you give the Cardinals a shout out for taking Calais Campbell away from the Finns? Is your Dolphins buddy doing all right? Okay, first off, Mac, Bob will certainly get a slap for you, okay? Startled my dog. It startled my dog, all right? All right, folks. So for those of you listening on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts, I have this Century Bob punching dummy that watches live game reactions with me, and typically I beat the hell out of it when the Buffalo Bills do something to piss me off. It's very entertaining, so I highly suggest you check on YouTube so you can see the abuse that this Century Bob punching dummy gets on an episodic basis. But then Mac also has another question, which I love, and he goes, did you see that the Cardinals got Calais Campbell? Yes, man, most definitely. Although he is getting up there in age, he's still wildly productive. His advanced metrics are all over the place. As far as the Cardinals, man, like, their biggest issue last year was pass rush. So I have really been giving them flowers on them understanding that and them hitting the ground running and trying to like fill up that defensive line, which is with as much talent as humanly possible. And I really hope that you guys really address it during the NFL draft, because there are quite a few of defensive linemen. It's a deep class edge rusher. Same thing with defensive tackle. So I feel like y'all are in a good position. And so I'll tell you this. On top of TD being upset about Calais Campbell, days later, so we saw that Teron Armstead called it a career. And now there's rumors that Tyreek Hill is going to be shipped off during the draft. So he is an absolute shambles. And he has only said that the Dolphins are going to win the Super Bowl about 4 times, which is a far cry from the 50 that I typically hear at this time of the year. So needless to say, he is upset. Sarah, what's going on? Are the Bills trying to trade for Jordan Addison? Go find your own wide receivers, Dan. No, I believe that that was just a skeptical headline from a beat reporter in the Bills community. Was just like, oh my God, should the Bills trade for Jordan Addison? It's no more credible than you overhearing a 12-year-old conversation on the school bus of who would win in the fight, a grizzly bear or a great white shark. Does not make sense, but that's just what people like to talk about. I don't think that Buffalo has any intention on bringing in a player that we would need to sign on a sort of contract, but we will see. We have Matt Lockey has come in. What's up, man? Real question. And do you get tired of mocking and talking about players the Bills won't even draft? Mock season is such a waste. It's getting frustrating. I'm not going to lie to you, dude. So I'd say it's exciting for about a week or two. After free agency, but I cannot wait for the actual drafts. Let's put it that way. I cannot wait for the actual draft. So I could sit down, look at the roster, and I can sit there and I can criticize whoever is coming on, like, right to this show. And so I can criticize our front office and be like, oh my God, why did he pick this guy with the 106th overall? Yes, most definitely, Matt. It starts to get annoying, and I am just trying to power through because you want to know why people enjoy draft talk, and I have a responsibility to keep them entertained. Rick is coming with a $5 donation. Thank you so much. Is there any chance the Bills offer a package like a second and AJ Epinesa to Cincinnati for Trey Hendrickson? I really don't know what's happening with the Trey Hendrickson saga right over in Cincinnati. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I have forgotten about it because they are holding that man in limbo. I don't think that we are looking to bring any other vets on this team. I think what this front office and coaching staff has realized that we have built a championship team, an AFC championship type team, massive playoff contender, always in the race for Super Bowl contender, always in the conversation based off of young, cheap contracts. Like last year when all of us were freaking out because we said goodbye to Gabe Davis, we said goodbye to Stephon Diggs, we said goodbye to Hyde, to White, to Poyer. Like we were like, oh my God, what could we possibly expect from this Buffalo Bills team? So our Super Bowl window is closed, and that was quite the opposite, right? We ultimately ended up having one of the best records we have had in franchise history. We were the most productive offense in Buffalo Bills history. So, no, I think that if we were to trade any player that is currently on roster, would be for us to make a significant trade-up type move, I think, is what we would be looking for. Thank you for answering. I like looking at our picks afterwards before it is a waste. Derek Cunningham has come in and said, whoa. Trevor Sikkema has moved Nick Emanwari to a projected third rounder from the first round. Think he is hearing some inside information. We might need a mock draft in. All right, folks. Well, let me tell you what it sounds. It sounds like some of us want to do a mock draft. Matt, I sincerely apologize. I sincerely apologize for the mock draft that's about to income, but I got to give the people what they want. Let's knock it out. It just gets annoying and boring watching you all act like you. Whoa, Matt. Smile, brother. Smile, man. Bengals are screwed with regard to the cap. I expect them to implode this season, especially if Chase and Higgins get injured. Absolutely. All right, we have Big Papa Bill. Dan, imagine we stay undefeated at home this season, considering we have all the hard times in Buffalo. Dan, imagine we stay undefeated at home this season, considering we have all the hard teams in Buffalo. It's going to be a test, but it's very difficult to beat the Buffalo Bills. It's very difficult to beat the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park. That has been proven time in and time again. But as many of us have already said, and Matt, sincerest apologies in the chat because he just came in and he was like, man, I hate mock drafts more than anything. But the people have been asking for it. So we're going to lock in and see how the board is falling. And you know what? We are actually going to trade up to the 24th overall pick because that is exactly what this entire sort of episode was about. So I'm going to see how much it's going to cost. And the PFF mock so the PFF mock draft simulator is not always accurate as far as trade compensation, because as we have seen here, let me ship this up real fast. Perfect. As we have seen, folks, for 2 years running, we were ultimately able to marginally trade up in the NFL draft for just the first and a fourth. But just for shits and giggles, let's do this. We have Void has come in with a statement. Dan, I need Kyle Williams on the Buffalo Bills. His release is something that can't be taught, and he just seems like he would be a great asset to the team for our Super Bowl run. Vade, I have been, and I am glad that you have hopped on the train, and or we could have been on the train at the exact same time, but you and I have been clear Kyle Williams contenders Oh my God, man. Kyle Williams contenders. And Matt is saying, y'all don't watch WSU football. Dude, Matt is dude. Matt. Oh man, we love you, man. We love you, man. Smile, Matt. Smile. Blake is saying, at least there's some trolling here in the off season. Good drama. Thank you for your service, sir. Doesn't mean we can't look at each prospect. Holy hell. Anyway, let's go on ahead and see what we have to do to get up into the draft. I'm not going to do that one, but I am going to give them a 4th round pick, which makes sense. Yeah, we'll give them Chicago. Offer the trade. We are in. Let me see. We have Paul is saying Buffalo got no run. Blake is coming in saying, did you get enough interest in the Buffalo live event? I believe for it. Let me see. Blake is coming in saying, did you get enough interest in the Buffalo live event? Yes, we did. And we were so excited to knock it out. We were so excited to knock it out. Anyway, we have the Tennessee Titans at the beginning. Let's start the draft and see who is up at pick number 24. We have Dante has come in on the conversation. What is your opinion on Najee Harris with the Chargers drafting a running back with their rumors? Dante has come in. What is your opinion on Najee Harris with the Chargers drafting a running back rumors? So I think that the Chargers are probably just trying to take a page out of the book of the vast majority of successful run game offenses, and that is just by having a running back by committee. And Najee Harris largely was a part of a running back by committee with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that he is like way more effective and not a 3-down back. So I feel like if the Chargers do bring somebody else in, I think that's a perfect move because that's what they tried to emulate last year. So with Dobbins. So I think that they probably will look for a running back, probably in like the 2nd and or the 3rd round, and then go with the running back by committee type situation. Anyway, this is where we are at, folks. 24th overall pick. The Buffalo Bills ultimately ended up trading up in this draft. I'm trying to look at a couple of players. Had Kenneth Grant going at the 17th overall pick to the Cincinnati Bengals. We would not have been able to trade up that high. We saw Will Johnson fall at 16th, which is interesting. Donovan, so the Ezeruku, he's a hell of a player. Mike Green went up to the Miami Dolphins. Warren went to the Cowboys. Golden went to the San Francisco 49ers. So if the Buffalo Bills traded up to 24, and this is, of course, according to PFF, we have Luther Burden. We have Burden, Simmons, Kelvin Banks Jr., Walter Nolan is not particularly somebody I think that is a fit for this team. I think Siobhan Revel would be interesting. I feel like you guys know exactly how I feel about Derek Harmon. He's not my favorite prospect at all. I think my favorite player here would probably be Trey Amos, who I think is going to go a bit higher. But F it, we ball, baby. F it, we ball. Let's see what else we got here. Darius Alexander. Let's see if we can get up with the Jags. That ain't gonna do it. Whatever. We'll do this. Matt has come in saying, question could be lit. Bill's social golf event Saturday before a game. I can host it. That's actually brilliant. So to be honest with you, we have been looking for ways that we can incorporate an event from Roundtable Sports up in Buffalo because number one, it's tough for us to find 50 tickets sitting together. So I would probably have to say that a golf event on Saturday would be absolutely sick. Anyway, we have the Buffalo Bills at 56. Let's see who we picked so far. We have Trey Amos as CB. Let's go ahead and check out the defensive tackles that are available. Shamar Turner, you have Omar Norman Lott. I do like Omar Norman Lott quite a bit. He would probably be my pick right here. Quality, one tech defensive tackle who has a limited shelf life. Then the Buffalo Bills would be with the 62nd overall pick. You have Trey Amos. You have Omar Norman Lott. Let me see. Oh, you have Royals? Psh, please. Right there. Sound off. Right there, folks. You have Jalen Royals, 62nd overall pick. I'm feeling pretty damn good about that one. Solid outside guy. Let's pause and see if we can get up with the Carolina Panthers, our farm organization. Seventh. Let's do a third. We'll do a third. Let's try this one. Fine with that. So we'd offer the trade right up here. And Kyle Williams, you are absolutely correct. He is there. He is there. We have Senke has come in and is saying, with the departure of Hyde and Poyer and their ability to patch holes, do you think we draft a more athletic safety due to the decline of Rapp? So we're going to need a safety, Senke, because when you look at our safety room, we have 3 guys that will be pending free agents in 2026. And that is DeMar Hamlin, and that is Rapp. And that's also Forrest, who we ultimately ended up signing this year as well. So the only safety we have under contract for the foreseeable future is Cole Bishop. So a safety is somebody that we would be looking for here. As far as how the board falls, I'd be looking at a couple of players here that we could get up into the third. I'm trying to think if anybody looks decent. So far in this draft, we had Trey Amos, we had Omar Norman Lott, we had Jalen Royals. So a corner, a defensive lineman, wide receiver. I'd probably take a look at defensive lineman here. Farmer is interesting. I do like Jordan Phillips. I do like Dion Walker, too, as a double dip candidate. Let me see what else we have. Let me see safety. If a safety. Winston is interesting. Have Makuba out of safety. Solid coverage grade out of safety. He would be interesting. Trying to see if he had any. Let me see. Run stops. He had coverage stops, 8 of them. Mukba's interesting at 97. But with that being said, Winston's also, his coverage grade is terrible. I'd stay far, far away from him because we need a free safety here. I would probably end up going for Joshua Farmer, probably. Have 2 defensive tackles. I'm a simp for players for the Ohio State, but Texas got some dogs in the draft. Oh, damn, man. I love to hear it. I love to hear it. But so y'all have the idea of what would happen in this mock draft. So like we said, we had Trey Amos at the beginning. So we traded up with the Minnesota Vikings with the first round and the 24th overall pick. And then second round, we received Omar Norman Lott. You have Jalen Royals, wide receiver, late in the second round, double dipped at the Florida State defensive lineman Joshua Farmer as a defensive tackle. And then we are sitting here cooking with the 170th overall pick. Let's go ahead and move this up a little bit. Let's get a turbo. Make it turbo for me. All right. So 170th edge is interesting. We could take a look at some edge rushers. You have Jaw Joyner. He's out of Minnesota. His sacks weren't necessarily there. Let me see what else we got here. Safety could be intriguing. I do like Keaton Crawford out of Nevada, but he's not even getting drafted at this point. Let me just take best player available at this point. Let me see. You have Lane. Wide receiver, have Thornton. Say, for example, we wanted to do this. Have Andrew Armstrong, who has also been skyrocketing, folks. He has been skyrocketing up boards as far as a potential player. Thornton is intriguing, but we already have a wide receiver here. I just probably kick the tires at a safety. at this point. Caleb Branshaw to Tulane. Last but not least, we'll take a Tai Felton. Bang, bang. Bang, bang. All right, folks. That's going to have to do it for another edition of Dom Mafia Live, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the daily show, the Dom Mafia Report. If, for example, you are listening on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts, I highly recommend that you come find me on YouTube at Dan Mitchell, because we have a live Q&A segment where the audience takes full control of the episode. If you guys are watching on YouTube already, please do me a favor, smash that like button. I love having these daily chats with you guys, and I might be live a little later this afternoon to unpack Tyleik Williams, a defensive tackle prospect that the Buffalo Bills have brought in for a top 30 visit. I love each and every single one of you, and I will see you